Good morning. Welcome to the Hockey Variety Podcast, episode 12 of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. It's Sunday, as promised. I got a Sunday episode. Really good reception on the last episode, the one I put Friday. I didn't even promote the episode that night. I posted it on social the next morning. But when I woke up Saturday morning, I already saw I had quite a few views. So I feel like the YouTube algorithm is catching up. YouTube's starting to figure out what's up. They're starting to figure out who is the next up and coming big hockey podcast. You know, that'd be sweet if this podcast just blew up. Like if this was the next big thing. You know, I sometimes wonder what would it be like to do this. And I'm not getting my hopes up by any means. This is entirely just a hobby for me at this point. But if you guys enjoy the content, I appreciate that. Be sure to subscribe, and all that. But I sometimes think man, what if I could do this as a job? That'd be so sick. Really, just talking about hockey all day. I do love my current job though. Don't get me wrong, but I have a great career. I could not imagine myself leaving that ever, but I don't know, making a bit of bank from talking about hockey, that'd be pretty sick. Yeah, I got dropping hockey in about an hour here. Got the Sunday morning drop, and that's kind of how my Sunday's been going. It's I do the podcast and then I go play hockey at 10 o'clock. So yeah, that should be fun. You know, it's not quite the same as playing in beer league though in the city though. I miss my guys so much. So great playing with those guys. And it's just such a big difference between dropping hockey and beer league because the emotion, man, you really want to win. The competition, it's so different, you know. And anyone that's played at a high level, AAA or junior or whatever, would be oh, who cares, right? But I don't know. I mean, it's all about how you perceive success, right? I never played hockey at a high level. I played, what was it? I played A in Pee Wee. I was the third string goalie on an A team in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. So that's pretty much, I was B? You know? I did get to go to one tournament though. And I kind of feel like they sort of felt bad. They're oh, he's the number 3 goalie. So they let me go to the tournament. I remember the parent of the number 2 goalie was all upset about that, but whatever, man. Whatever. Suck it up. You got fancy new Vaughn Velocity pads. I don't care. I still got my used Vaughn Visions from the 90s. Okay, I don't feel bad. Okay. Anyone that's rocking used Vaughn Visions from the 90s doesn't feel bad about anyone or anything for no reason. So, yeah. But yeah, I played a tournament in Fairview, Alberta. I was 11 or 12. And I only got into one game. And it was our last game. And it was against the best team in the tournament. And I kind of want to do a podcast where I talk about my own accomplishments as a guy that's played average level hockey his whole life. But you know, playing in that last game in an A tournament when I was 12 against the best team and actually playing pretty well, we didn't have a chance in heck of winning that game, but we didn't get blown out. That was the kind of game where your number 3 goes in, you're playing an actual A team from Alberta, and I played pretty well. I think I only let in maybe 3 or 4 goals. We still lost, but you know, that was a cool experience. I'm glad I got to do that. But anyways, I should pick up the pace here. Yeah, but my beer league guy's getting it done. We're getting pretty comfortable in a playoff spot right now, knock on wood. Honestly, so proud of those guys. It looks because again, we got to finish either top 5 or top 6, and we don't know which it is yet. And we're pretty comfortably in 5th right now. So we got 10 games left in the season. I know my guys can get it done. Lately, we've been talking about we're getting secondary jerseys for next season, and it seems like my team's a little tiny bit divided. Like, not like seriously fighting over it, but like it seems like half the team wants to go with, because right now our jerseys are like purple, right? It's like LA Kings reverse retro from 2 years ago. And it seems like half the team wants to go with like white, right? Some like white with like purple accents and some gold in there maybe. Which makes a ton of sense, right? Like you have dark jersey or purple, and then we have our white jersey. And then the other half of the team, myself included, wants to go like wacky and zany a little bit, right? Like a popular pick right now is like the Dallas Stars rave jerseys, like the black with the neon green. Because like we're willing to go black, right? Though, I mean, I guess it doesn't make a ton of sense to have a purple jersey and a black jersey, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We have half the team that wants to go white, and then we have half the team that wants to go like zany. And I've been trying to keep it pretty even with the ideas. Like, I'll post the ideas in our group chat, and you know, the guys will leave a like on the pictures they like, and then I save the ones that have been popular. And then closer to the summer, because we're not making the order till the summer, I'll do like a proper vote. Not a proper vote, sorry. I'll do like the checkbox vote where the guys just pick as many jerseys as they want just to see what sticks. And then we'll do another vote where like the top 3 from that first vote, and they can only pick one. So try to keep it fair. Yeah, and oh, man, it breaks my heart. Nobody other than myself and like one other guy who's an Arizona fan, I think. Nobody wants the Kachina, and it breaks my heart. Yeah, oh man, I want a Kachina so bad. Like even a white Kachina, like dark Kachina, like I want nothing more than the Kachina jersey. Maybe like especially if it's like the Tucson Roadrunner, like the Kachina with the purple. But no, like it baffles me. Like nobody wants it. I'll never have my dream of a Kachina. You know, if I have a kid someday and they want to play hockey, and I end up like kind of managing their team, which I could see that happening someday. You know, we're getting the Kachina. Like it's not even. I don't care if the players are upset about it. I don't care if the parents are upset about it. We are getting the Kachinas no matter what. I will take that to my grave. They will happen eventually. Maybe not my generation, but maybe the next generation. Anyways, we're like 8 minutes in already. So, yeah, the All-Star game happened and the skills competition in the NHL. I plan on talking about that. I am going to recap. Not recap. I'm going to go through some more playoff history in the NHL. We talked about the 2020 playoffs a few episodes ago. You know, the bubble hockey. That was such a crazy, wacky playoffs. And I'm going to talk about a different year in today's podcast. And I'm not going to tell you which year because I want the suspense, man. I want the suspense. And then I got a fantasy pick for you guys because I did not do the fantasy pick last episode because I didn't want to overdo it with the fantasy, especially since there's like the bye week for a lot of teams, like the All-Star week kind of deal. So yeah, didn't really have too much to say. So I do got a fantasy pick today. So yeah, looking forward to that. And anyways, let's get into it. Oh, and also in life news, me and my fiance might be getting a kitten as soon as like today, which is scary. Yeah, we're ready. We got one cat already. He's like 2. We think he'll handle it. He's still like in that playful phase, so I think he'd be able to handle a little buddy. But we're gonna try to introduce them the right way this time because last time we introduced a cat to another cat, we just did it totally wrong. Just like, yeah. Anyway, speaking of cats, speaking of Florida, the All-Star game. Yeah, so we had the All-Star skills competition on Friday, and we had the All-Star game yesterday. I watched most of it. I had to do some work yesterday, so I had the All-Star game on like my personal laptop, and then I was doing work on my work laptop, so I was kind of paying attention. But yeah, I'm going to talk about the good, going to talk about the bad, going to talk about the weird. I'm not going to call it ugly because, like, you can't associate the word ugly with this year's All-Star game, because visually, and I said this in my All-Star preview episode, I think that was episode 8 or something like that. This is like visually one of the best All-Star games ever. I mean, you can see the jerseys on the screen right now. Absolute fire. I was actually a bigger fan of the white jerseys beforehand, but the black ones they've grown on me. My only gripe about them is I felt like in the actual All-Star game, I felt like the uniforms were a bit too similar. But not really. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, especially, like, you can see that picture of Larkin shooting the puck there. Like, there doesn't seem to be enough black on the back, but I'm nitpicking. These were such good goalies, or such good jerseys, such good uniforms. Definitely a win for the NHL in that. In terms of that, so yeah, totally blanked on my words there. So, skills competition on Friday. I personally thought the skills competition was better than the actual game this year, and I think like it's been like that in recent years too. Yeah, I really enjoyed the accuracy shooting. I watched all of that. Connor McDavid just absolutely nuts, and like when it was first announced who was doing what in the skills competition, me and a lot of other people on social media are just like, why isn't McDavid doing fastest skater? Blah, blah, blah. But it turns out like the players actually get to pick. And the best player in the world gets first dibs. And he's already won fastest skater, I think multiple times. And this is just McDavid wanting to conquer the skills competition at the All-Star game. He's got nothing left to prove in fastest skater. I mean, everybody and their mom knows McDavid's the fastest player in the league. I don't think there's any question there. So now he wants to take over the accuracy shooting. So yeah, and he didn't win it. So he's going to do it again next year. But he did finish like top 8 or top 7 all time. He hit the 4 targets in, I think, 9 seconds, first try every time. So he's going to be trying to break that next year. McDavid will be doing the accuracy shooting again, and once he eventually wins that, don't be surprised if he tries to do like hardest shot or something like that. So yeah, that's my prediction for the skills competition. Another thing I really liked about the All-Star game is, oh man, like UC Saros is the ultimate like alpha giga chad, and here's why. So every single goalie at the All-Star game got custom pads that had a lot of like that seafoam green color that you see on the jersey, like that green blue kind of color. Every single goalie got custom pads in that color, or maybe with a bit of that pink on it too, but pretty much like that seafoam green, except for UC Saros, my guy. He was like, nah, I gotta rep Smashville. I gotta wear the Nashville pads. And I love that. That like it's such a stupid highlight of the All-Star game, but I love that. Seriously, I'm a fan of UC Saros, and I love that he was just like, nah, I'm repping the gold pads and the gold stick even too. He didn't even change his stick. So yeah, UC Saros, the true MVP of the All-Star game. He actually played really good in the game itself. But Matthew Tkachuk ended up getting MVP. I don't even remember how many goals he had, maybe like 5 or something. But, he's the hometown guy. The All-Star game is in Florida. It makes sense it goes to a Florida guy. The Atlantic won. It was cool seeing the Tkachuk brothers playing together. That was pretty cool. Crosby and Ovechkin linked up for a few goals. They had that one goal where they passed back and forth like 5 times before actually finishing. So yeah, that was kind of cool. But yeah, overall, yeah, I'd say it was a success. Like, don't forget though, the All-Star game is for the kids, and I think like they did a good job in that respect. Really, they did a lot of stuff with the mascots this year too. I like that. So yeah, overall, I think it was a successful All-Star game. And like I said, this is for the kids. I think they did a good job in that respect. And even if it's for the fans, then yeah. So I do have one big, and I'm going to call it a big complaint about this year's All Star. Okay, you know me. I try to keep this podcast pretty positive. There's already a ton of negativity in hockey, especially if you're on social media. It's nuts, and I don't like I don't like being that guy. But I've got to mention something, and it relates to the episode I did on the All Star preview as well. And like, I mean, I don't know. You can call me a sheep or whatever that I'm circling back on one of my opinions, but hear me out. Okay, so in the preview, I talked about why the NHL does one player from every team. And I know so many people don't like that, and pretty much in the podcast, I told those people, calm down. The one player from every team thing, it does have a rightful place in the All-Star game. The All-Star game, it's a representation of like bringing the league together. You got one player from every team. Even if your team is having a terrible year, like Chicago, like Columbus, you have a player there at that game that you can cheer for. Okay, I'm very much in favor of every one player from every team. But that opinion might be changing, and here's why. So, oh boy. Okay, so from the original All-Star Game roster that was released, Matty Beniers made the All-Star Game. And good for him. He has been Seattle's All-Star all year. Very exciting rookie in the league. Great pick, right? Well, he got injured before the All-Star Game. It happens. It happens all the time. It happened multiple times this year, in fact. Tage Thompson couldn't make it. I can't remember why. I'm assuming he's injured. But they replaced Tage Thompson with Rasmus Dahlin. So a teammate makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. But here's the thing. Okay, here is what is bothering me about the All-Star roster. So, Matty Beniers, injured, can't make it. Too bad. And you think you would replace him with another Seattle teammate, especially since there are no other Seattle players on the Pacific team roster. So what do? Because, they replaced Tage Thompson with his teammate, Rasmus Dahlin. They replaced Matty Beniers with Chandler Stevenson. And as a result, there is no player from Seattle in this year's All-Star game. Now, it wasn't Stevenson got voted in. Stevenson got picked by the NHL to replace Beniers, and thus no representative from Seattle. That drives me crazy. And the reason why that drives me crazy is because the NHL is pretty much breaking a rule that they've been pretty strict on about having one player from every team. And they had the choice. They had the option to bring another Seattle player in. They could have brought in Jared McCann. They could have brought in Brandon Tanev. They could have brought in, Martin Jones. Like, who cares? It's not tough. Brandon Tanev would have been great. He's a pretty, he's got a personality. He would have been perfect for the All-Star game. But they picked Chandler Stevenson. Keep in mind, Vegas already had a representative in Logan Thompson, the goalie, who also really deserves to be at that game too. And not that Stevenson doesn't deserve to be at that game, but you could have picked a different Seattle player. They should have picked a different Seattle player. So now the fact that the NHL is kind of circling back on not really having one player from every team, I'm starting to agree with those haters that felt like, oh, it should be the best players no matter what. Because now the NHL is not even sticking to it. And that really, really bothers me. And on top of that, this is the newest team in the NHL. They went from having a pretty bad first season to being arguably the hottest team in the Pacific. You think they're going to be a playoff team. Like, the NHL should be pushing Seattle. They should be happy. They should be embracing Seattle. This is their baby. And they can't back them up. It drives me crazy, really. Seriously, put Jordan Eberle in that game. Adam Larson. Who cares? Put someone from Seattle in the All-Star game. The only Seattle related person who was there was the mascot, the troll, Bowie or whatever his name is. So I think that's not getting talked about enough. I think that is a huge L for the NHL. I think they really messed up. No offense, Chandler Stevenson, fantastic hockey player. He's having a great season. And like, if we are talking about skill wise and not talking about one player from every team, Stevenson definitely deserves to be there. He's probably the guy from the Pacific who should fill that role if Seattle already had a player in the All-Star game, which they didn't after Matty Beniers got injured. So I think I've gone on enough about that, but I think that was a big mistake by the NHL. But I mean, nobody cares other than me, so let's move on. Okay. Something kind of weird roster-wise. I like it. I don't think it's a big deal. There's going to be people that make a big deal out of it, but Bo Horvat playing for the Pacific team, even though now he is Vancouver Islanders property. I've never liked saying that word with NHL players because I think it dehumanizes them. It makes them sound like a house, right? Like Bo Horvat is Islanders property. He is a house. That's what it sounds like. But anyways, yeah, he played on the Pacific team. He had a New York Islanders patch on his jersey. And I don't know. I like that. You know, he got to play with Elias Pettersson one last time. Yeah, I got no problem with that. People are going to make a problem out of that because the internet. But no, I think it was cool. And remember, when John Scott made the All-Star game in 2016, he was property of he was property of the Montreal Canadiens at the time, but when he was voted in, he was playing for the Sharks. He was in the Pacific, so he played for the Pacific team as property of the Montreal Canadiens. I gotta stop saying that word. I don't like saying property talking about people, but it just doesn't sound right. But so yeah, the NHL has stated they've shown in the past that it's not a really big deal, and it's not. But the internet, they'll make a big deal out of it as well. Yeah. Now with the game itself, it was pretty average. Actually, I kind of feel like the NHL, maybe for just a year, they should go back to 5-on-5, maybe do conference versus conference or something like that, just to mix it up. I feel like the 3-on-3 is getting old. There wasn't really anything too whoa, I thought, about the game. I thought the skills competition and the events leading up to that, on Thursday and Friday, I thought those were kind of the highlights personally. So I don't know. I feel like they need to mix up the game a little bit next year. Maybe go back to 5-on-5, something like that. So yeah. Another weird thing too about the All-Star game, I think there was only 5 defensemen, which has to be an all-time low. Only 5 defensemen or something like that. Maybe 6 defensemen. I thought that was kind of weird. That felt kind of low, especially considering how many absolute stud defensemen there are in the league right now. So yeah, I don't know. That's just how things worked out. And again, you take one forward off the team, people are going to complain because they'll say he deserved to be there or whatever. So, yeah, that just seemed odd, but not worth losing any sleep over, especially when it's the 3-on-3 format. You can have 3 forwards on the ice. It's an all-star game. Who cares, right? You could have 3 goalies out there instead of skaters. It's the all-star game. Who cares? But yeah, I think they need to mix up the formula a bit. They announced that next year's all-star game will be in Toronto. Yeah, I got nothing to say about that. Big market. Sure, why not? Where was it last year? Vegas? I feel like Seattle should get one soon, and they will get one soon if the NHL does actually care about Seattle, because they don't care about them enough to have a representative at the All-Star game. Anyways, that's my recap. Thought it was a success. I still absolutely love the jerseys. UC Saros is the ultimate Giga Chad alpha male. He's my guy. He should win the Hart Trophy this year. Okay, next. The 2019 NHL Playoffs. This is the playoffs. This is the year of the playoffs I want to talk about today. We talked about 2020 a few episodes ago, and I thought, hey, we should talk about the year where your bracket was totally messed up after the first round. I'm saying that right now. I don't even know who's going to be listening to this podcast, but I can tell you in 2019, your bracket was ruined because everybody's playoff bracket was ruined. Mine especially. I think I had one correct pick. Seriously, I remember like they do the bracket challenge every year, and I think like very, very, very few people out of like tens of thousands of entries even came close to like getting this right or got this right. Like usually there's quite a few winners because usually things go as expected, except for this year. Yeah, 2019 was crazy. And like when I look at the last 4 playoffs, and I do want to talk about the 2022 one because there was a lot of craziness that year as well. Even though I would say the 2 best teams, the 2 right teams made the finals in 2022. So it all worked out in the end, I would say. But there were some just crazy series, lots of game 7s, game 7 overtime. 2022 was nuts. And this year, 2019, also had some game 7 overtime, which I will get into. And I probably won't recap 2021, at least not anytime soon. Like when I look at the past 4 years, 2021 was kind of the playoffs where it was like, oh, you know? Because like with 2020, there's all the stuff going on with COVID. It was so like wacky and zany and different with the bubble and the 24 teams. It was just like, obviously the pandemic's like a terrible thing, but that was kind of like sort of a sort of weird, neat positive out of the pandemic was the 2020 playoffs, I thought. Like we're going to look back on that and be like, hey, remember how wacky that was like 20 years ago or whatever? Whereas with 2021, it was like the world was starting to get back to normal, and it was this like kind of weird mix of normal and not normal, and it felt very like pandemic-y, you know? Like I don't know how to explain it, and obviously like that's no fault of the NHL or anything, right? But it's not quite as memorable. I thought, but that's a matter of opinion. Having an all-Canadian division was pretty neat. I don't think we'll ever see that again. But, you know, 2021, I thought it was kind of meh, you know. But I don't know. Maybe I'll talk about that in a future episode. So we're going to talk about 2019. Now, here's a big disclaimer, okay? I'm going to be going full San Jose homer mode during this segment, okay? So brace yourself. I have some opinions on the San Jose Sharks this year that I will get into, but prepare for the Jack Edwards of San Jose segment. But I have a lot of series to go through first. I'm not going to go super in depth on every single one because I honestly don't remember every series that well, and I didn't feel like doing a bunch of homework and recapping every single one. So I might just glance over a few series here. But there were a few that stuck with me, one of which, Tampa Bay and Columbus. The Columbus Blue Jackets swept the Tampa Bay Lightning 4-0. This was after Tampa Bay had a historic regular season, one of the best seasons of all time. So many individual accolades out of that. Kucherov winning the Hart Trophy, and I think the Art Ross as well. Vasilevsky winning the Vezina. Hedman probably won the Norris. I can't remember, but I'm assuming he won the Norris that year. Historic year. And in the first round, Columbus just totally kicked our butt. I watched every game that series because I am a bit of a Columbus fan. They're probably my second favorite team still, and they have been for quite a few years now. And at the time of this playoff, I was already a Columbus fan. So I watched every game, and I was very happy for the Blue Jackets, obviously. And I remember when I talked about the 2020 playoffs, I said like Toronto versus Columbus. I felt like that was Columbus playing very well rather than Toronto playing bad. This is different. Okay, Columbus played really good, don't get me wrong, but Tampa was not Tampa. This was Tampa choking. This wasn't Columbus dominating. This was Tampa choking and Columbus playing very well, which is not a good combination. And yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from Columbus, but this did not feel like Columbus Toronto. This felt like Tampa blowing it. And we all know how that turned out years later. They win 2 straight Stanley Cups. They went to the finals last season against Colorado. They're contenders again this year. I wouldn't be surprised if they did win the cup this year. But you know what? It's like Crosby said when the Pens lost in 2008. Like, you got to experience how tough loss is before you learn how to win. And I know Tampa lost in 2015 as well. But I think most people will say, yeah, that was the series that woke Tampa up. So, some positive came out of it. But yeah, Tampa got swept by Columbus. We all know that. Toronto choking against Boston. What else is new? This one didn't feel quite as dramatic as 2013, I think it was. Toronto, Boston. Yeah, I don't know. This is just one of the many instances where Toronto can't get it done in the big deciding game. Yeah, Boston, like a very good team, but Toronto, that's one of those many times they can't get it done. Maybe they'll get it done this year. They're probably playing Tampa. Who knows? I don't bet on Toronto anymore. I don't bet at all because I don't gamble, but if I were to, I don't ever pick Toronto until they can show to me that they can win a first round or a qualifying round, I guess. So yeah, Boston wins. Carolina wins in dramatic fashion against Washington. In 7 games, that game 7 went to overtime. I think Jordan Martinook scored the OT winner. Not the only time we see Game 7 overtime this year. And you can't beat Game 7 overtime. That's the pinnacle of hockey. Like, one goal decides if your playoff hopes are still alive. So epic. Carolina, Washington, so cool. The Islanders swept Pittsburgh. I was still very much a Pittsburgh hater at the time. I'm not anymore, but I was. So I'm still pretty butthurt about 2016 with the Sharks. But yeah, it was nice seeing Robin Lehner and the boys sweeping the Pens. Dallas beat Nashville. Obviously, that's an upset with the wild card beating the first seed out of the Central. I don't have much to say about that. I don't remember watching much of that series. Same with St. Louis and Winnipeg. I'm sure that was an excellent series. I can't quite really remember too much from that. But St. Louis getting it done in 6 games against Winnipeg. Colorado, Calgary. That was an interesting one. That was Cale Makar's debut, I believe. And I remember everyone was like, oh, he's so good. Wow, he's been so good. Wow. And I was like, okay, calm down. He's probably just going to be like a whatever player, right? Oh, he won the Hobie Baker, whoop-de-doo. Well, now I look like an idiot because Cale Makar is one of the best players in the league. And yeah, I can't believe I didn't doubt him, but I was kind of like, okay, I'm not sold on this guy. Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm sold now. But yeah, Calgary won game 1, and then Colorado just won 4 straight. And I did catch quite a bit of that series. And kind of like Tampa Columbus, this was just Calgary choking. Like, Calgary did not look good. Colorado looked good enough, and obviously having that boost from Cale Makar helps, but Calgary didn't look like Calgary, and this was the number 1 team in the West that year. Calgary had a great season, and yeah, they just blew it. That's about it. Okay, here we go. San Jose, Vegas. This is, like, when I look at this year's playoffs, and obviously I'm biased as a Sharks fan, but this is the series. Okay, this was insane. So, oh boy. Okay, so San Jose we'll fast forward. So after game 4, Vegas is up 3-1, and it looked bad. Okay, Jones didn't look like Martin Jones anymore. The Sharks Vegas just looked better throughout those first 4 games. Vegas just looked like the better team, and I was fully expecting the Sharks to lose. Game 5 comes around in San Jose. San Jose, they pull it off. Jones didn't look great in game 5, but they found a way to win. It was just one of those games. And then game 6 in Vegas, out of nowhere, like Martin Jones having such a difficult playoffs up till that point, he makes 58 saves on 59 shots in a double overtime victory for the Sharks. Game 6 doesn't get talked about enough because, well, I'll get to game 7, obviously. But Martin Jones, like, that was one of the best individual performances in a playoff game I'd ever seen in my life. Still to this day, by a goaltender at least. In an individual game, that was so impressive. 58 saves, 59 shots. Martin Jones just winning that game. Thomas Hertl winning in overtime, double overtime, on a pretty weak goal on Fleury. I wish I watched the highlight before hopping on the pod here, but I remember it being a weak one. But I'm not complaining. Game 7 goes back to San Jose. Okay, this game was like historic and weird, and prepare for me to go full San Jose homer mode. Okay, so we'll fast forward. So halfway through the third period, Vegas is up 3-0. And Vegas was, I'm not going to say they were dominating. They were definitely the better team, though. I would say like borderline dominating that game. Like, it looked like they were going to win that game. Okay. And actually, I was in bed. I had my laptop open with the game. I was kind of falling asleep to the game because I was like, okay, this is done, right? Like, I had my eyes closed already. And then I hear, whoa, Joe Pavelski's down. Oh, Joe Pavelski's hurt. And I was like, wait, what? So I kind of open my eyes. I put my glasses on. And I look at the screen. And I see it. And I'm like, oh, our captain. Oh, no. And then I see it. And I see the play. And I'm like, he might get 5 for that. Like, when you watch it in real time, you see a player, he gets badly injured. I get it, right? And then I see, who is it? Thomas Nosek, I think. He gets a 5-minute major. And then I see the replay. And then I start to think about it. And I know I said I was going to go full San Jose homer mode, but that, I think most people agree that shouldn't have been a 5. I mean, maybe you give him a 2-minute minor just because it looked bad. I don't think people would be complaining, even though I don't know if that should have even been a penalty. Nobody would complain if he got a 2, but because he got a 5 and what transpired after that 5, people make a big fuss about it, and good reason for it. I'm not going to defend that call by any means. It was a bad call, but also remember with the referees, like, the rules didn't allow them to review that at the time. Like, the refs can't just make up rules, and we see this later on in the playoffs too, but they couldn't review that. They can review it now, thankfully, but they couldn't at the time. So Nosek got a 5-minute major, and then the Sharks scored 4 goals on that 5-minute major. And it was just like incredible considering they were down 3-0. Now they have the lead. As a Sharks fan, that was just like the coolest thing ever. I was like, whoa. And to people that are upset about Vegas getting the 5-minute major, okay, if you're a team as good as the Vegas Golden Knights, contenders, you can't allow 4 goals on a 5-minute major. 1 or 2 is excusable, but 4. Okay, I'm not going to defend Vegas for that at all. Yes, that 5-minute major shouldn't have happened, but you don't allow 4 goals. Teams take 5-minute majors all the time. I mean, I know it's not super common, but when that happens, usually they don't let in 4 goals, let alone in a game that they've been dominating up till this point. In game 7 of the playoffs, huge L by Vegas. Vegas screwed that up so bad. But, after that major was done and San Jose was up 4-3, as the period went on, as the rest of the third period went on, I had this gut feeling. I was like, oh, Vegas, they're going to score. Like, you could just feel it. Like, you just knew it was going to happen. I was like, if the Sharks win this, I don't think it's going to be in regulation. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I told you so kind of thing, or that I'm psychic. Because, you just heard me go on about how bad of how I thought Cale Makar wasn't going to be a big deal, and then he did. So obviously I can be wrong a lot of the time, most of the time. But I had a feeling. I was like, San Jose's going to tie it. They tie it in the last minute. I think it was Marsh or so. I was like, yep. And then it goes to overtime, and that was a crazy overtime, back and forth. It could have ended multiple times for either team. Barclay Goodrow, he was on the bench all overtime. He gets on for his first shift, and he is way faster than everybody. He's well rested, and he just scores and goes around Fleury at home in San Jose. Crowd goes wild. I'm going to go and say that is the biggest goal in San Jose Sharks history. Unfortunately, that was in the first round of a year where San Jose did not win the Stanley Cup or anything. So, I don't know how important that was, but that was a huge moment. Very glad I didn't fall asleep. And biggest goal in Sharks history. Okay. And again, I will not defend Vegas for that 5 at all. You cannot allow 4 goals on a 5-minute major, period. But that wasn't the right call. I'm glad the rules got changed as a result. So let's move on. Okay, let's fly through the second round here. Boston beat Columbus. The better team won. It was cool seeing Columbus win. I think it was their first series victory in the franchise history against Tampa there. But yeah, they're not moving on. Boston's good. Yeah. Carolina sweeps the team that swept Pittsburgh. Carolina looked pretty dominant. They were very good this year. More on that later. St. Louis and Dallas, another series that went to Game 7 overtime. Patrick Maroon scoring kind of a weird overtime winner. I think his first shot hit the post. He got it back right away. So like a little bit of luck there, but very fun overtime. I remember watching that. Super cool. Game 7 overtime. Can't beat it. San Jose, Colorado. Okay. Time for my next tangent here. Okay, so first of all, it was a good series, right? Went to 7. The Sharks went to 7 games without Joe Pavelski. I don't think they got Joe Pavelski back after that injury until Game 7. And speaking of Game 7, I think it was Game 7. Second period, Sharks are up 2-1, and Colorado scores to tie it, but Gabriel Landeskog was offside. He was changing. His feet were both inside the zone, and he couldn't open the door. And I heard in an interview with McKinnon years later that the door was apparently sticky. But my guy, it's Game 7. You need a goal. Jump off or something. Like, if the door's not working, just go. Get your feet off the ice. Get in the bench. Okay? And I remember there was a lot of criticism, especially after that 5-minute major against Vegas. People weren't liking the Sharks, but I don't care. I don't care. Because Landeskog was offside. Like, you can say he had no impact on the play. You can say he was changing, and you're not wrong, but he's offside. He's in the zone. That is the rule. The refs have to call that. There is no argument. There's no argument there, okay? You can say what you want, but he was offside. That's it. Doesn't deserve a rule change or anything. Maybe they need to like lube up the home or visiting bench or whatever in Colorado, so like the door works properly. But he's offside. And also another thing too, that would have been a tying goal. It's not like that was an OT winner or anything. Like, you don't know if that was going to be the big difference maker. Maybe it would have. Maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. It's kind of like the whole Calgary-Tampa in 2004, right? Like, Calgary scored, but the video review was like, no, you don't know if that would have won them the series too, okay? Getting Getting a bunch of Flames fans hating on me probably. But yeah, no, that was offside. No argument. On to the conference finals. Okay, so the chain reaction of sweeps continue. So Boston sweeps Carolina. So for 3 straight series, the team that completed the sweep got swept in the following round. Really weird kind of chain reaction there. Boston moves on to the finals. 2 very good teams duking it out. Just Boston had them. And this was the first series of 3 where Boston met Carolina in the playoffs, and there's a bit of a rivalry. And look at this year. The top team in the Atlantic is Boston, and the top team in the Metro is Carolina. So, be pretty cool to see them meet in the conference finals again this season. If that happens, I could see that happening. I would love to see that happen. Okay, San Jose and St. Louis. Okay, first of all, the better team won. If you watched that whole series, which I did, St. Louis was the better team. I'm not even going to argue that, right? Like, even in game 6, like, I could tell pretty quick. I was like, yeah, St. Louis is winning this series. But in game 3, in overtime, in St. Louis, there's a hand pass. It was LeBanc or Hurdle or someone. I can't remember, but somebody hand passed the puck, like swatted it out of the air, right to Erik Karlsson, who puts it in the net and scores in overtime. It might have been double overtime. And Jordan Binnington loses it because there was an obvious hand pass that the refs didn't see. And from like a fan perspective, watching it on TV, it's like, how do you miss that? Ramble, right? But I don't know, maybe there was a player obstructing the view of the referee, but they missed it. All 4 officials on the ice missed the call, and the goal counts because you can't review that. And they changed the rule since, I think, that you can review that now. So we had multiple rule changes as a result of this 2019 playoffs. But yeah, I know I am a huge Sharks homer, especially when it comes to the 2019 playoffs, but yeah, that was a hand pass. Yeah. And I mean, like, maybe people don't care in hindsight because St. Louis won the series anyways. And again, the right team won that series. I can't defend that. That was the wrong call, period. I'm glad the rules changed as a result of that because they should be able to review that. So, good on the NHL fixing that. But yeah, that was bad. And again, I don't know if the Sharks would have won or lost that game if that got waved off. But yeah, that was bad. I can't defend that. So, okay. Stanley Cup Finals, Boston and St. Louis, 2 teams that people weren't expecting. Boston, maybe some people expected Boston, but not St. Louis. Like, we all know this is a team that was in last place in like December or January of that season, and they get into the playoffs as a 3rd seed as well, which is pretty impressive. Not even a wild card. Beautiful story. They go to the Stanley Cup Finals. Boston, St. Louis, that was a classic series. All-time classic. I would have been happy with either team winning, to be honest. I don't really have a favorite. I guess St. Louis a little bit because they'd never won a cup. They hadn't even made the finals since like the 60s before that. So I liked seeing teams get their first cup in franchise history. Hopefully the Sharks eventually. We'll see. But not anytime soon. Yeah, I was happy for the Blues. I watched Game 7. I think I was at a bar with a friend, and it was cool. Not too much suspense in that game. St. Louis they won. Yep, they played good. They played really good defense all playoffs, but especially in that Game 7, they saved like their best defensive performance for last. Jordan Binnington looking great, and I remember saying like, I think if Binnington got a shutout that game, which he almost did, I think he would have won the Conn Smythe personally, but it went to Ryan O'Reilly. I can't complain about that either. O'Reilly had a monster season. I think he won the Selke that year as well. So he was a big part of that. I mean, it was a team effort, right? Really cool seeing Jabo win the cup as well. Very happy for him. Lots of guys on that team that were overdue for a cup, I thought. It's a good story. I would have loved to see Tuukka Rask win a cup too, though. He's a guy I've been a fan of for years. So, that's kind of a disappointing thing, I guess. But you know what? There can only be one cup winner every year, and we see more and more players retire without a Stanley Cup these days. So, way she goes. Congrats to St. Louis. I'm the biggest Sharks homer of all time, and I will defend that 5-minute power play. I will defend that offside, but the hand pass, no, I can't. Okay, let's wrap things up. So I got to go play some hockey here. My fantasy pick for this episode is Kyle Palmieri. The reason why I'm going with the Islanders, I think they play 4 times this week. It might only be 3, but they play 4 times. Obviously, with the acquisition of Bo Horvat, you think Palmieri will be playing with either Horvat or Brock Nelson at center, so he should be racking up some points. The Islanders have a pretty easy schedule this week too. When you look at the teams they're playing, other than Seattle, like they got Vancouver, they got another kind of crappy team in there. So, yeah, Kyle Palmieri, he's my pick. He's on a point streak right now. He gets you hits as well, shots on goal, and he's going to be playing with a pretty good center the next little bit here. So I would consider picking him up. One thing I forgot to mention with my fantasy pick 2 episodes ago, Brandon Tanev, I went with a Seattle player because they don't play on a very busy Saturday that's coming up. 4 games this week. No Saturday. So when you're looking at schedule, Seattle, you can't go wrong with Seattle players this week, okay? Beniers will hopefully be coming back from injury. I picked up Beniers in both my leagues, so fingers crossed. He should be good to go, though. So yeah, Palmieri is officially my pick for this episode, but I recommend checking out some Seattle players if there are any available in your league. And that's it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have to get going because I'm going to play some drop-in hockey this morning. Maybe picking up a kitten later today. We'll see. We're still thinking of names. We're trying our best. He's orange. He's beautiful. We're probably going to adopt him. Let's be honest. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Might only get the Sunday episode next week, so you might not hear from me for a while. I got a lot going on this week, so it might be a while. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, all that. Cheers.